Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zach Randall-Friedman, your host of this nice little podcast. So thanks for joining me today. I got several pitch emails over the past, I've been getting a lot more every week. Every week I get a lot. Every week I get about 75 or so emails, people pitching to come on my show. And, it's amazing, but I only pick about 3 out of the 75. And I need them to be a match for what I want to talk to. And I stay away from politics mostly. I stay away from religion, kind of. But, when you're talking to psychic mediums, you're talking about people doing past life regression, and you're talking about people that, believe in aliens. I've covered all those topics. The traditional Christian religion, Jewish religion, Muslim religion, none of those really fit, because what I now believe in, which this podcast has changed my thoughts, which I've said before in this show, but I do believe in reincarnation now. And I believe that, you come back, and I believe everybody's kind of an energy and stuff. So my whole thinking has changed since doing this podcast. So I get a pitch email for my guest today, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, oh, I don't think this is going to be right. Something about it, though, told me, keep reading, keep going through. There was some talk in this email about, spirituality and Jesus and stuff, I believe. I can't totally remember what the email was about, but it felt like maybe it wasn't going to be a fit. But I read on, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is a fit. And I'll just say, whenever I went into the interview, I really wasn't sure what was going to take place. So this man, David, gets on the camera. He's there, and he said he was from South Carolina. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to be like a Bible thumping guy that's going to tell me that being gay is wrong or something, like I made a mistake here. But I'm like, let me go with the flow. Then he said, oh, hold on, my husband is getting my mic or my background set up for me. I'm like, oh, okay. Made me feel better. That means that he's gay, and so he's not going to tell me how wrong my lifestyle is, because he's living the same life. And then we had a fabulous conversation. We went into talking about spirituality. We talked about what he does. And at the end of the day, he was really quite fascinating. And one of the things that I loved that he said was, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to have all these labels, if we could actually just be humans? I mean, yes, it would be amazing if people respected who everybody was, and we could just be all just humans and not have to put labels and everything. Like, nobody should care if you're gay or you're straight or you're bi or you're trans. They should just care that you're a kind human person. That's the world I wish that we lived in. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world, and people are disrespectful. But I think, and I'm hoping one day we'll get there. So enjoy my interview with David. He was really interesting. And wait till you hear how old he says he is in this interview. You'll be shocked. I was shocked on his real age, because he looks so much younger. So thanks for listening, and enjoy the episode. Thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have a guest that we are going to have a pretty interesting conversation, I think. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Zach, for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do and who you are. Let's start off there, because I think a lot of people would be interested in just kind of your background.
I have made a long journey from my upbringing as a very fundamentalist family. My aunt was my pastor, which is quite interesting in the 50s to have a woman pastor in the religion that was very dominated by patriarchal male type of religion. Mm-hmm. But she instilled in me something that I believe to this day has gotten me through 6 decades of teaching and ministry, was her great strength. So that's where that started. Where I am today, I'm a spiritual leader of a community here in Charlotte called Heartlight Spiritual Center, which is a very diverse group of people, no denomination. Come as you are. We accept you for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We love you for who you are. And that's what I do. Also, I'm developing this Academy for Spiritual Awakening, which is kind of a legacy of my teachings of many years that we're putting together. Because I think we who have made it out of more organized, fundamental, fear-based, have left a trail for others.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go down an interstate, I think about my forefathers, that was just a little trail, and then it was a road,
Yeah.
and then it was a highway, then it was a superhighway, and how we enjoyed that. So I think what we're doing today is kind of helping to cut that path for others out there who are maybe where we have been and where we have made it, to encourage them.
Yeah. And so what is your thoughts on the really deep religions that are out there today? So some of them even seem a little cult-like-ish if you think about it, and they don't believe in the LGBTQ plus community. They don't have that belief of no matter who you are. The religion that I grew up in was like a Southern Baptist religion. And, you're supposed to like love and treat everybody with respect but that's not at all what I think it is
Not at all.
today. So
No.
it's if you're different or you don't have the same exact beliefs as the church or the people members of that church, then you're kind of on the outs. And I think it's been brought into politics now, and the whole thing is just seems like a disaster to me.
It is a disaster. And I do believe that any organized type of religion is a cult.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to make the difference in occult and cult, because people hear when you say occult, they think you're talking about a cult. But occult is those who are more spiritually defining, more metaphysical, looking past the literalism and finding out. The thing, Zach, that started me on a different path as a young Christian and beginning a ministry at 17 years old was just a thought that came into my mind that nobody in the Bible spoke English.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what did they say? So at that young age, I started looking up the Greek and the Hebrew and the Aramaic and studying Near East culture, which is everything in the Bible is Eastern. The very thing my church said stay away from was Eastern teaching.
Yeah.
And so it changed everything. So I started talking aloud about what I was finding out, and I found a following of people that was going, wow, I've never thought of it that way. And that is really how I built a ministry back in the 60s, actually, when I first started. So I think it's the literalism and the idea that the Bible is a book from God about man, but no, it's a book from man to God. Mm-hmm. We define God in our image and likeness and made him this old guy in the sky, this anthropomorphic old guy, that looks like us. And I think that very young, Zach, I began to feel a presence in my heart that was different than the God they were talking about. And for some reason, I chose to follow my heart and not my head.
So tell me what you felt. Like, who do you think the God is then? Like, what's your God?
This is interesting because, as I said, I've been in this for decades, talking about God, teaching about God and all of that. And I've actually ran out of definitions of God, which I think I've beheld the face of God. I think the face of God is silence. Mm-hmm. When all the dogma and the doctrine and the perceptions have all died, I think you're beholding the face of God, which is what I call a quantum field of all possibility. It does not have a definition of its own. We define it to become what it is. So if we define it as love, then that is love. If we define it as something else, it becomes that. So I just think it's an important thing that people realize that the word God was just kind of an influence of a word from more German influence of the word good for gut. And we didn't like that Gretel, so we made it God. And even in the Bible, it says in the beginning, God. There's no such word in the original God. It is Elohim, which is a group of people that comes down out of the sky and begins to do things on the earth. Now, that's getting into a deep subject. But anyway, I have dug and researched this thing for so long that I'm continuously kind of thinking myself out of business, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it.
I know you understand that. Yeah.
And so, like, whenever people are talking about heaven and hell, when you die, you're going to heaven and all that. Do you believe in any of that?
No. The first book I wrote was Hell Yes or Hell No,
Okay.
back in the
Love
80s.
that.
And I did a complete thing on how that the organized church of 315 AD under Constantine decided to take the influence of Dante and his works of hell and his rings of hell, which was his own emotional depression and anxiety that he was putting into his writings as the inspired word of God.
Mm.
And then they put in the word hell and they took out the real words, which was Hades or Sheol, which were words that actually meant a hole in the ground. In fact, at one time, you could have said back in an Anglo-Saxon language, you can store your potatoes in hell, which meant you put it in a cellar of some kind,
Yeah.
or it finally became the word grave. So no, these words are just put in there when fear-based religion began to show its ugly head after the 3rd or 4th century.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. What do you think it would take for the world or all these deep religious people to realize that what they have been taught all these years is not probably factual? What do you think it would take for them? I've asked this question to other people, and they're like, "Well, we need aliens to come down and show them that something
Hey,
crazy."
whatever
like
it takes.
Yeah, but I think that some people are, and I do think there is a shift also in the newer generations where they're not falling into those deep religious,
Well, and
churches.
that's why we see this exodus out of religion into what they're calling spirituality.
Hmm.
I think there's an awakening that's happening, whether it's a cycle in time or evolution, I don't know. I just know that something is changing in people and people. I think one thing, Zach, is the fact that so much information is coming
Yes.
to us that we're reevaluating all of our belief systems that we've been stuck with, especially from conception to 5 or 6 years old. The Catholic Church is so bold to tell you, give me your child till 6, 7 years old, and we have them for life because they understand those early times in which we deposit those first early thoughts into what I call my first energetic energy system. These some people call it a chakra. A chakra is your root chakra where you hold all your stuff while you're being formed by the tribe. And of course,
Yeah.
if your tribe has a religion, you were formed by your religion. If your tribe has a political, then those things. And those are the things that are deep in all of us. Even though we intellectually think we move away from them, it doesn't mean that they've moved away from us. So I still find after all these years that certain situations can happen outside that brings up that old thing in me that I learned in early childhood. We need a renewing is what we need. That's
Yeah.
what new birth means. It means becoming the person we were created to be that's gotten lost into some egoic pseudo self that has been formed from the outside of ourselves. People are turning in. I think meditation has been a great tool for that. I think when Shirley MacLaine came out and people started reading her book and people started doing transcendental meditation, I think people started then to be getting more in touch with their inner self that they have lost and gotten. So I think we're in the midst of a transition. I think we're like the caterpillar that has gone as far on the leaf that it can go, and
Mhm.
something is changing even in our DNA.
Yeah.
And I think these kids coming in this generation are far beyond what we have had to go through to get there. So it's an interesting time to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, just all the social media and if you go into TikTok or you go into any of these social media channels, you see a lot of people talking about spirituality and not talking about religion and talking about what they think happens when you die and talk about, just all the things that you just kind of mentioned and moving away from that. But you still have, a large group of people that they feel like the LGBTQ plus community are harming religion and harming the world and stuff. And just,
Yeah.
again, you see a lot of people shifting away from that, but at the same time, with where we are in the country today and stuff and things like that, it feels like we took 10 steps forward. Now we're taking some steps backwards now too.
Well, I'd like to say something about that, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I think what we're experiencing, actually, from a spiritual point of view now, not a political,
Hmm.
But a spiritual point of view is that all of our pathologies that we have contributed to make this world is erupting on the body politic for healing and balance.
Hmm.
And I think people like, I won't mention names, but figures that have shown up is really doing this service to help us understand not what we need to change outside of ourselves, but what we need to heal and change in ourselves. And I've learned that because I'm, as a gay person, of course, I'm very upset with the direction that we're going and what is happening out there. And at first, I was very angry and I was very upset and I felt failure. And I thought, this is not the way it's supposed to go.
Hmm.
But then I began to understand that crises precedes transformation. Breakdown is because of breakthrough. And I thought, I'm going to work with what's breaking through and let that which is breaking down, let it break down. So I think there are players out there. There's an old Bible story. It's an old Bible story, but the children of Israel, it says I don't know if they were or not, but I'm going to put the story. They were in bondage for 340 years and did nothing about it and just kept making bricks for Pharaoh generation after generation until God hardened the heart of Pharaoh to drive them out. So when I put that story into our time, I'm thinking there's players that have shown up to get us to wake up and to go deeper. And I know that's happened for me through the last few years of this more conservative direction that we're going right now. It's made me dig deeper in myself and not just spend my energy projecting it on them and I'm the victim, but realize I have co-created with my own thoughts and I'm a part of the collective. So that's kind of my take on it to make sense of it, whether it's that or not. But I don't think this is a punishment from any God. I do not think it's a failure of humanity. I think it's evolution that is waking up and taking its divine self to the next level of what it means to be human.
Yeah, I love that. I love that what you just said. That resonates with me so much. That I like the breakthrough piece also. Like,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Who would want to come to your spiritual sanctuary? Like, who would want to come there? Like, what type of person? It sounds like you welcome anyone, but if somebody's really questioning, they're Catholic or they're Southern Baptist or they're from the Church of God, and they're really questioning things, is coming to visit you, is that a good first step?
It's definitely a level that I could meet them on. It's not all the levels, but that's the first thing on my academy is Bible 101, in which I deal with all of the fear-based dogmas. What is sin? What is hell? All of that. So I've got a whole series to meet people there. Now, some people haven't had that experience like you and I did. They jumped over into a completely different level. So I try to have teachings for those people. And then there's people who's been in this for a long time, but they're feeling there's more and they want to go deeper. So, it's on levels. Even the Bible speaks of babes in Christ, adolescents, and adult co-creative beings. So that's the thing the church has never taught us, that we're here to grow, to mature, to learn. And religion has caught us in its grips of saying, all I have to do is believe this doctrine and believe that doctrine and just wait to die and go to heaven or wait for Jesus to show up in the sky and zip me out of here. And that is the worst thing that one can do, is get stuck. We're here to grow. And I've always taught spiritual growth for all these years.
What was the point in your life? I mean, it sounds like, there was when you were younger, there was a point, but what was that moment where you're like, everything that I've been taught my whole life is false? Or did it take a while to get there? But was there a certain moment where you're just like, the light came on, you're like, this is not right?
I think my answer is both those things. It did happen. I had an experience at 17 years old. We'll go into it, but it was kind of, I was just being in the right place at the right time. I was really checking out a revival that was going on down the street from my church. And while all these cars were showing up every night, I wanted to go in and see what was happening. And it ended up being a movement that started. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was known for oil and oil Roberts and oil capital of the world. So it was a lot of religion surrounding that time. But there was a lot of people there. And the minister who was up preaching, I came in late and sat in the corner. And all of a sudden he stopped And he started walking down the aisle, and he pointed to me and said, "You've been sent here tonight to receive." And I'm looking around like, who is he talking to?
Yeah.
And he said, "Would you like to come up here?" Well, I didn't know what to do. Everybody knew who I was because I was my aunt's nephew was known. So I just got up and said, "Okay, I'll walk down there." I didn't even make it. Something came over me.
Oh.
And the way I describe it is like my 110 body tried to hold a 220 frequency. And I literally fell on the floor. Didn't hurt myself, whatever. And now this is the most way out spiritual thing that ever happened to me in all these years. But in that, I had kind of a vision, and that vision set me on a trajectory. I went down as a shy young man at that time dealing with my sexuality already. It started early. I knew early, before sex ever came into the picture. I knew that I was attracted to more male type energy in my environment. So I knew this was coming, and yet I was hearing about it from the pulpit. So the conflict was huge at that time. So I was trying to work that all that out. And so anyway, when I came out of that situation, I came up with this booming voice that came out of me like, who am I? And they call that the receiving of the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Yes. And I just started being asked to come and speak to all these places and youth places. And I knew that what was coming out of me was not what I'd been taught by the church I was raised in. It was like I was channeling it. It wasn't coming from me, it was coming through me. And I started teaching a growth. And it was actually due to a scripture in the book of Ephesians. It says, "Till we grow up into the fullness of the stature, being no more tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, but growing up in him, being no more children." And I thought that's the message to the church, is grow up, reevaluate yourself, check your belief systems out, and do your own research. And I mean, I'm 17 years old when that started, but that's what I built the ministry on. But there was an experience that happened. But then since then, it's been an experience that has grown and grown and grown and grown. And I'm still growing.
One of the things that I'd like to talk about is just how humanity is evolving to the next level of consciousness.
Yes.
Tell me what that means to you.
Well, I'm an evolutionist and a creationist.
Okay.
So I've made up a word, crelution.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get people, join me, become a crelutionist, because it's not this or that anymore, like in this 3D world of these split polarities. There is a place for us in the gap. I don't know if you remember a scripture that says, "Who will stand in the gap and make up the hedge?" And what that means is there are those on the planet right now who are standing between a world that is dying and a world that's trying to be birthed. And we don't know where we belong, but we don't belong. We don't belong in this 3D world that is, we've come here for the next level. So if you look at it from a standpoint of evolution, we know that we start out as Homo erectus, Homo luminous, sapien, and on and so forth. Well, I see that in the soul world too, that we come in and we become these humans. I think one of the worst things, Zach, that is being taught by the church is some loving spiritual God created these inferior physical bodies. Yeah. I know where my body came from, my parents.
Yeah.
2 other bodies made my body.
Yeah.
And therefore it holds my spirit, but it's not my spirit. And it either can be a tool for growth or it can be the prison for my spirit. That's why it says Jesus went and preached to the spirits in prison. And I don't know what he said, but I'm going to say he said, "Hold on, there's a generation coming that will not walk as forefathers, and they will be set free of this prison of whatever." So I see that we're physically evolving. I think we are spiritually evolving. I think our soul is evolving, and I think we're here to live through that. When you ask who would benefit from my message, even though my message is universal and out to everybody, I do believe that it mostly is directed toward what I call the first fruits of the harvest.
Okay.
What I mean by that, think of a harvest and how that the first fruits, say the corn or the wheat, there's always those that bloom first and then the rest are coming.
Yeah.
Now I call it light workers. But I think there is a group of people on the planet that is not here by accident, but you have purposely incarnated for this time to step up. And I think the call has gone out. And that's why I get on all these podcasts, because I think if there's one person out there that feels the call and I can give them some kind of empowerment to step up and be a part of this first group of people that is needed right now. You can call them healers, you can call them light workers, you can call them energy workers, call them what you want, but there are theirs to bring this thing forward. So my message kind of has that kind of call in it, that we can come together. You know, the Bible speaks to the 144,000. And I thought that was physical bodies, 144,000, but I'm into numbers. I believe there's one out of every 5 books in the Bible is about a number. In fact, the Bible is all numbered in verses and things and whatever. So I started thinking 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 4 is 9. Now, a 9 in numerology is completion. And I thought, who is on the planet that's completing? Now, I happen to be okay with reincarnation. I cannot prove to you that. It's an individual thing that everybody has to decide if that's for them. I know that I'm in my last incarnation in a third dimensional world, and I'm ready to evolve to the next level of what we call a 5-dimensional world.
And so what's that?
That's much of teaching. Well, 3D is what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
Separation, injustice, inequality, all of that. And we've tried to change it by changing the politics, changing the leaders, getting the right person in. That's going to be all right. If we vote to the right to vote, then that's all right. That's not true. The African American culture is still dealing with a lot of injustice. And just because, as wonderful it is, we got the rights to marry, that hasn't solved everything about our position in this society and whatever. So we need a real transformation. It's not just a change of law, but it's a change of inner law, of universal law that needs to take place in people.
Yeah. And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. I would like to go into a little bit deeper about when you're talking about this is your last incarnation.
Yeah.
So you believe that you've been reincarnated, I guess, in your previous lives, and you're back, and this is your last one in this 3D world.
Dimension.
Yeah, in this dimension. Okay. And I, since doing this podcast, never thought I would believe in reincarnation, but I do after meeting with so many different types of guests.
Yes.
And doing research on it. That's what I now believe. And I'm interested to know about just this is the last of your incarnation in this 3D world. And you talked about it a little bit, but what happens next for you?
Well, I'm sure the old caterpillar is not quite sure where it's going, but it just knows it's going. And that's kind of the stage I'm in. I don't know how to define it. I know this. I know that I have a 3D body. In that I'll give one example. In a 3D body, we have blood, right? It circulates and keeps life going. Even the Bible says life is in the blood, the flesh of the blood. But people don't know, and you can check me out on this, that blood is congealed light. So when I transfer it to a 5D container, I will go back to the frequencies in which my blood will become light in me. And this is what happened to Yeshua, Jesus they call him, on the high mountain of transfiguration when the light outshone him and he wore it like a garment. And I think that this is going to be a tremendous experience in which we change. I just sold this business for 25 years. I had Some Energetics, which was working with people with tuning forks and sound and vibration all over the world. I have teachers and students and people that I taught. And my whole thing was to change the blueprint of our physiology in the etheric body. So that's getting into a lot, but let me just say about that when cells are constantly dying, even when we're talking, cells are dying and replacing themselves by the hundreds of thousands, millions. Well, where the new cells are getting what they become is from a blueprint. So I decided it's not just changing my thoughts. I know everybody's into this. Change your thoughts, change your life. I've tried that. I've tried positive thinking, and I love positive thinking. It's a good thing, but it's not the answer. And I realized that there is an etheric body that becomes our physical body all the time. So I began to work with people in the etheric body to change the blueprint of how cells vibrate differently, atoms turn differently. I'm very much into quantum stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my new religion, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That when I lost mine, Deepak Chopra talking about quantum healing and all of that, I said, man, that's my language. That's what I've been looking for. And I do see God, to me, is this unified field of no thing that can become everything. Get that?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's not a thing; it's a field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of the religions that are out there today are missing the kind of unconditional love, right? I think there's a lot of judgment in a lot of these religions, and if you don't fit into this box that they have you in, and that makes, I think, a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community scared of religion and scared of religious leaders and stuff. So, like, how do we get people there to have that unconditional love? Like, do you think we'll see that in our lifetime? Or, I mean, I know it's probably a lot of work to do still, but
that's a loaded question. I'm not sure. It says we know the hour nor the time.
Yeah.
Of the coming. So I'll use that principle because I don't know. I just know we just need to keep moving forward and keep following our higher wisdom and our higher self. But I think one thing, if we want to see love come to us, we have to learn to find a place in us to love. Mm-hmm. I know that's not easy, but I'm not talking about eros, or I'm not talking about all the different levels of love. I'm talking about agape, which is the higher divine love, the love that's unconditional. If I want to have somebody love me unconditionally, then I've got to practice loving them unconditionally and realize that they're in a state of ignorance. They don't know what they're doing. They haven't been taught. They don't know. They think they're right, just as I feel I'm right. So that's kind of the polarity that we're dealing with. So I think what the world is looking for is the example.
Yeah.
And I think that LGBTQ people have the advantage of showing that kind of love in spite of what has been done to us and how we've been positioned in religion. And I do want to say something that's kind of, I wasn't going to say it, but I think I feel to share this. Yeah. When I talked about my last lifetime, how do I say this? I'm still, now this is me, and I don't mean this to be anybody else, this is me, but I'm still not doing well with labels.
Okay.
This is me. But, I grew up in the time in which queer was horrible word.
Yes.
I mean, it couldn't be called anything.
The last 5 years has taken me time to get that word, where it's okay now.
I'm still working on that. And I do it, but whatever. Then fag, came along and all these kind of terms. But even the idea of homosexuality and all these labels, I understand them. In the world we live in, we need to identify ourselves. Mm-hmm. But there's a deeper identity in me that transcends all those labels, and I'm just me. Yeah. I call it the I am that I am. I am that I am, and don't put a label on it. I don't have to say I am gay, I am straight, I am this, I am that. I am. And if we'll find that core place in ourselves, I think we've found our spot, our center of who we truly are without the labels. But I want to say this, and I don't say this often on anything, but I was shown that I have lived exactly the right amount of lifetimes as a female as I have been a male. And therefore, in this last lifetime, somebody must need this out there. In this last lifetime, I've come together with a complete equality of male and female energy. So it's not a thing of being homosexual or gay, which I am in this world, mm-hmm. but I'm also something else in my soul. My soul has found its partner because she was so lost. See, when the soul fell, into the body realm and left the spiritual realm. And now it's returning, and the marriage between the male and the female is taking place. And you know what the Bible calls that? A new creation.
How do you know about your previous lives? How did you learn about them?
Well, my own inner research. I just get these downloads. I call them downloads. That's like an epiphany. Mm-hmm. It's like something that comes to me. And then I have been blessed to find connections with people that are so gifted in this area of past life regression.
Yeah.
And really, my answers have been in between lives. Wasn't a past life. It's contracts and agreements that I made previously before I came here. And that's an answer to one of your questions, is what's going on out there is these contracts that we have forgotten we made are being activated in us and moving us out of the status quo as we begin to start searching for bigger space of consciousness within ourselves. But I felt to share that with you, that if anybody has any connection with that, so be it, and I hope it'll help them.
I mean, I would love to be in a world where there's no labels. Like you are who you are, and why? I mean, that would be an amazing world to be a part of. So, if you're gay, straight, who cares? Like nobody needs. Why would it matter? It would be a fantastic world to be a part of. You grew up in a religious environment. What relationships, if any, did you lose whenever you started having this transformation? Whenever you decided who you are in this world and you had these different thoughts about, the religion you grew up with, did you lose people in your life whenever you started thinking differently?
I didn't lose a lot because I was so young still. I had not been placed solidly into the dogma and the doctrine. Mm-hmm. And even though my family was fundamental and my aunt was what they were, there was a certain liberal side of them that I think helped me. And there was always gay people, I'll call them at that time, around. I don't know why, but I remember these gay people being in our lives of our family. So there wasn't that judgment toward gay people that a lot of people may have faced at that time, which maybe I chose to come in that family. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it did help me later to continue being supported by my family, even when I continued ministering and was gay. At the same time, I didn't lose support. So I've gained more than I've lost, I think is the answer.
That's amazing. I mean, you're so lucky in that, I feel very lucky too, whenever I, told my mother and father and friends, and it took my father 6 months or so to kind of come to terms with it. But then we became closer than we were before I told him and stuff. So, and he loved my husband as much as he loved me before he
That's
passed
wonderful.
away. So,
you are blessed. We're very fortunate.
I mean, do you feel that people are, I don't want to say this and degrade anybody, but I feel like the people that have a higher intelligence are able to kind of think through the way that you're thinking more. And people that don't maybe have that higher intelligence, they're kind of stuck in just what they were told when they were growing up, and they're not thinking any other way. They were raised Catholic or Southern Baptist, and this is what they were told, and that's what they're sticking to. What is your thoughts on that?
I love that question, actually, because, again, I'm going to put myself out there a little bit. This is a revelation, but I believe that there is a critical mass of souls that have incarnated at this particular time who have somehow come through a different portal to be birthed, because I think the main portal of coming into a 3D body is so guarded with technology of some kind, even technology before our technology, that they can dumb us down until we don't get it, until we're going to die and we go through the tunnel and go, I could have had a V8. In other words, we get it too late. But I think there is a people who have come in on a different frequency, is what I want to say. And they didn't go as deeply into the illusion and hypnotic sleep of the material world, but has held a yearning from their past pre-physical world, spiritual life, that has given them an advantage of being open to higher consciousness thinking. Now, we could get in a lot of trouble here, but anyway, there was a research that was done out of the university, I believe, in New Mexico. It's been a while, but it talked about how that LGBTQ people was researched as a plus plus, whereas heterosexuals was a plus minus and a minus plus, and on and on. And I thought, okay, there is something about coming in like this that is an advantage consciousness. And I think that's why we have, I believe, so much to contribute to the world and society. I think we're a good people. I think we're a people that's creative and working with creation and all of that. And I think it'd be a shame. I cannot imagine a world without people as ourselves to contribute what we contribute and who we are. I think we're the softer part of things. I think we're the more loving part of things that give us a chance. They do push us sometimes until we have to fight back somewhat, but I don't think that's our innate nature to do that.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to be a part of the world, and sometimes you got to fight back to be a part of it. Yeah, I agree. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. I think it's fascinating what you were talking about, where you're talking about just before, when you're in that in-between where you're thinking about the contract and stuff like that. And to me, I just think that we make up time in our heads in some ways, like there's not really time out there. But, whenever you think about when you're like in between coming back and you're kind of figuring out like what your contract is for the next incarnation that you do you know what that's kind of like? Are you with other people or other souls or spirits that you're with that you've kind of been through other lives with? Like that's what I think, but I wanted to hear kind of what you're.
I love that. Yes, I do think that. I do think that there's what I call frequency matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we're not ever alone. I think we are always with those of like mind, of like frequency, both the seen and the unseen. They call them angels, they call them all kinds of things in religion, but actually it's the different levels that we ourselves have been through that has attracted those who also match those frequencies. The Bible calls it a cloud of witnesses. There's a scripture that says we can pass with such a cloud of witnesses, but they without us cannot be made perfect. So I do draw on that. That's why I didn't throw everything out of my religion that was spiritual in nature. Mm-hmm. Like the idea of angels. I don't know if I believe in white fluffy cloud angels, but I do believe in higher thoughts, which is the Greek word for angel is messenger. Mm-hmm. So when I hear that go do this or change the side of the street you're walking on, I know that's my guardian angel, which is my higher self, telling me something that keeps me very much in a line with that. But yes, I agree with you totally with that.
Are you scared to die?
I don't like the idea of dying. I don't know how that's going to take place.
Yeah.
And that's where I am. I mean, I'm 80 years old now.
You're 80, really?
I'm 80 years old.
Wow. Good for you. I would not have guessed that at all.
Thank you. You made my day. Well, I've always taught life and taught, I'm ageless. People used to say, are you New Age? And I say, no, I'm no age. I'm a spirit with no beginning and no end. So maybe that's worked. I don't know.
You just shocked me, and I don't get shocked that often about things. So that shocked me. So good.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm blessed with some good genes and some good things that help me that way. But anyway, I am thinking about things, how this is all going to play out.
Yeah.
And that's going to do that. But death, I'm going to be honest with you. I've not figured out what's later.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's my honest, and it feels so good to be honest about it. Because as a minister, I've always had to come up with something, some story, something that I'm not even sure what I'm talking about. So I don't know. It's the mystery I think we all live with.
Yeah. I wish more people would be more honest like that too, because I think it would make people believe in things more because
Well, that's
people
the
are,
advantage. That's the advantage of age.
yeah,
The older you get, the more honest you get.
yeah. And I had a woman do a past life regression with me, and she took me back to two of my lives. And I guess it was about an hour it took. And it was just not at all what I thought it was, what my past life was. One of them, I was a farmer in probably Kansas. I was a man. I had a wife, children. I seen myself die, seen my wife die. My husband was my child in that life. And it was just, and it's almost after she did that, it's like I start remembering what the house looked like. I mean, it's like almost like she refreshed memories that were there, but I just couldn't remember them. And it was just,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's, her name is Myra Rath. I mention her often on my podcast because she's done this for so many people where she's had them. I don't know if you know who Dolores Cannon is.
Yeah. Know her well.
Yeah. And so does a lot of things that the Dolores was doing. And I just think it's also fascinating. So I can't get enough of that research and education whenever I get into it. So I want to know more and more and more and more.
Oh, good for you. I think that's great. I want to say that the seed of reincarnation, being from a biblical background, it's all in there. And it's the fact that it said of Jesus, he's the last Adam. And I thought, well, what happened between the first Adam and the last Adam?
Yeah.
He was reincarnating. Abraham, all of these people and when he got to David, he got into the bloodline that he could be born into. But I do believe that Jesus is the last of the cycle of reincarnation. And that's why he said that this is the end of, the world, of the world of reincarnation. And I think he is the one that opened that up and told us that we don't have to keep coming back, that we can go up higher into frequency, vibration. And that's what I teach. When it describes there's wars and rumors of wars and all this, earthquakes and all this, he said, look up.
Yeah.
Not over to another lifetime. So I appreciate reincarnation. It brought me here, but it's not my destiny. It was the tool that was used. And that's grace. Grace said, okay, I know you can't make it in 60, 70 years, but I'll just keep giving you a body and a vehicle to keep working on it and doing it. If I had a wreck out here, or if I'm going to point A to point B and I have a wreck in between, I'm not destined there. I'll get another car and continue on.
Yeah.
So that's all the bodies are. They're just vehicles for us to continue the journey.
And if you're talking about kind of like the light work and healing and stuff like that, it feels like you're doing that in a way where as you're educating people, trying to get them to understand a different way of thinking.
Absolutely. I tell everybody, if you've got something wrong with you, go ahead, go to your doctor, get the test, find out, and then find somebody who can energetically diagnose you.
Mm-hmm.
Because a doctor doesn't do that. I've never been to a doctor that said, what's been happening to you the last 6 months or 9 months of your life? Which we know that in the etheric body, that things that show up in the body are there 6 to 9 months before they show up.
Yeah.
So the things what we call energy work is preventive. It's finding these mispatternings that are in the blueprint that's going to eventually mess up the way cells develop. And we're going to call that cancer, another label.
Mm-hmm.
Another label. I had a dear friend that just transitioned from cancer, and she was not to live 2 months. She lived 4 years.
Wow.
And when she went to chemo or whatever she did, she didn't call it cancer. She called it C-answer. Or chemo became Dreamo.
Okay.
Yeah, she totally took it out of the label that held all of that energy that causes the cancer out of it. And I do believe to this day that gave her 3 or 4 years of life by doing that. We're powerful. We are so powerful.
Yeah.
And people need to know it.
People just need to realize it.
They need to know it.
Yeah.
One thing I say to our group at the center, I get them to say 3 times, I am the center of my power.
Yeah.
over three times, just to bring them home and realize we are not here to be victims of this world. We are here to be co-creators of our destinies.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you're fascinating. If somebody wants to learn more about you, is it sanctuaryforawakening.com where they should go?
Yeah, or actually, if you want all the things I do, you can just go to davidhulse.com.
Okay, I'll put that in the description of this video or podcast so if you're listening to this, just go to the description and go to davidhulse.com and you can learn all about this stuff and
Well, this has been wonderful. I've done several of these LGBTQ, but you've been the best one.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I've connected with. You've made it easy, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, I'm interested in what your perspective is, and I agree with a lot of things that you're saying. So I think, I just wish more people would have a more open mind with things, and maybe they would learn something,
Well, maybe we've helped a little bit today.
Hopefully we've, like you said, hopefully we've helped at least one person. So
that's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do. If this podcast resonates with you, this episode, share it with somebody. And don't forget to go to David's website. Again, it will be in the description of this video or podcast. Thank you so much for being on, David.
Thank you.